There's something about moving into a retirement community, a neighborhood with neatly clipped hedges and freshly painted mailboxes, that makes you think life will finally ease up. After decades of long commutes, mowing lawns on weekends, and raising kids who eventually leave the nest, most folks just want a little calm. A place where neighbors wave from their porches, where sweet tea is sipped in the shade, and where borrowing a cup of sugar doesn't come with conditions. That's exactly what I believed I had found when I purchased my home on Maple Ridge Drive. But my grandfather used to warn me, every peaceful town has one loud troublemaker. That saying came rushing back the morning my front door practically shook off its hinges from pounding so hard it rattled the frame. Through the peephole, I spotted two uniformed police officers, their faces serious and unyielding. My pulse quickened as I opened the door, confused and anxious at their unexpected arrival, especially at 7 in the morning. The taller officer checked his notepad and spoke in an official tone. I was accused of violating a court order involving an unauthorized pool installation. Apparently, Patricia Sanderson, the ever-watchful president of the HOA, had filed an emergency complaint. She claimed I was destroying evidence and endangering the neighborhood. Still half asleep in my pajamas, I could only gape as he read, through accusations that carried a $10,000 price tag for supposedly lowering property values. This circus had actually begun 3 weeks earlier, right after I'd settled into my new place. At first, everything seemed ideal. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and a quiet atmosphere. I'd barely unpacked when I noticed Patricia making her daily rounds. Clipboard clutched tightly to her chest, her stride sharp, her frown carved into stone. Exactly 1 week after moving in, the first letter landed in my mailbox. It carried the HOA letterhead and accused me of violating Section 12.4 of the community bylaws, unauthorized pool installation. I read it once, then twice, then a third time, baffled. I walked to my backyard, staring at the patchy grass and overgrown flower beds. No pool, no construction, nothing even close. Thinking it had to be a clerical mistake, I called the HOA office. Patricia herself answered after just 2 rings, her tone dripping with irritation, as though I had interrupted her grand duties. I explained politely there must be an error. No pool, no plans for one. She chuckled mockingly and declared she had personally seen it during her inspection. When I suggested she come take another look, she accused me of hiding it with strategic landscaping. She even claimed to have photographs and lectured me that ignorance of HOA bylaws was no excuse. From there, things spiraled. Every day, another fine appeared in my mailbox, each one stacking an additional $100 onto my supposed debt. Cease and desist letters followed, demanding the removal of my non-existent pool. Patricia even plastered warnings on the community Facebook page, declaring I was setting a dangerous precedent. Neighbors began whispering. Some avoided my gaze altogether, while others gave pitying glances that said, "We've been there." Tom Bradley, who lived 2 houses down, leaned over the fence one evening and shared that Patricia had once fined him because his shutters weren't the approved shade of beige. 2 weeks in, things escalated. A process server appeared at my door with official court documents. Patricia was suing me for $10,000 in damages. The complaint listed multiple code violations, property devaluation, and something bizarrely worded as visual disruption of community aesthetics. That night I pored over the paperwork in disbelief. She claimed my secret pool was messing with drainage patterns and breeding mosquitoes. The so-called photographic evidence showed nothing but blurry grass and shadows. One picture had a red circle drawn around my garden hose coiled against the fence. The very next morning, while I was in my backyard snapping photos for my own defense, Patricia's voice pierced the air. From the sidewalk, she accused me of tampering with evidence and warned she would call the authorities. I ignored her and kept documenting the perfectly ordinary yard. 20 minutes later, police officers showed up. Patricia had dialed 911, claiming I was operating heavy machinery to dig up the yard and conceal the pool. She alleged I was endangering the neighborhood. The officers looked around, clearly puzzled to see me standing there with nothing but a camera in my hand, surrounded by plain old grass. After they left, issuing Patricia a warning about abusing emergency services, I knew I needed reinforcements. I hired David Thornton, a local attorney well-versed in HOA battles. He scanned the case file, shaking his head in disbelief. He already knew Patricia's reputation. Without hesitation, he filed a countersuit against her for harassment, defamation, and abuse of process. David didn't stop with the countersuit. He brought in a licensed land surveyor to comb over every square foot of my yard. The man spent 3 full hours with his equipment, measuring, photographing, and recording data. His final report was crystal clear. No sign of a pool, no excavation, no construction, no hidden infrastructure, just grass and weeds. Our digging also uncovered something even more revealing: Patricia's long track record. She'd been HOA president for 7 years and had filed over 40 lawsuits against residents during that time. Most homeowners eventually gave in, paying her off just to avoid the headache of drawn-out litigation. The pattern was undeniable. Patricia thrived on intimidation. The court date landed on a humid Thursday morning, and the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Nearly every seat was filled with neighbors eager to see if Patricia would finally face consequences. At the plaintiff's table, she sat ramrod straight in a severe black suit, radiating smug confidence as though the outcome was already written in her favor. When it was her turn, Patricia delivered her case with all the theatrics of a stage actor. She paraded out her grainy photographs, insisting they proved hidden pool structures. She even displayed a poster board with arrows pointing at random spots in my yard, claiming they concealed underground plumbing. Her pièce de résistance? A water bill showing slightly elevated usage. Proof, she argued, that I was secretly filling a pool. But then David stood. Calm, methodical, and unshakable, he dismantled her story point by point. The surveyor took the stand, presenting precise measurements and crystal-clear photographs that left no doubt. No pool existed, and no digging had ever taken place. We introduced satellite images covering 5 years of my backyard, unchanged and entirely ordinary. As for the water bill, David revealed it was explained by the sprinkler system I had legally registered with the HOA. The judge's face darkened as the truth unfolded. He rubbed his temples when David revealed Patricia's history of weaponizing lawsuits against her neighbors. The courtroom was dead silent except for the occasional shuffle of paper or a stifled cough. After barely 10 minutes of deliberation, the judge delivered his ruling. Patricia's case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it could never be refiled. Our countersuit succeeded. She was ordered to pay $15,000 in damages plus every cent of legal fees. On top of that, a restraining order barred her from coming within 50 feet of my property. But the judge wasn't done. He scolded Patricia for abusing the court system, calling out her years of harassment and warning the HOA board to reconsider her role as president. Patricia's face turned beet red as the weight of her defeat sank in. 3 weeks later, the community gathered for an emergency HOA meeting. The turnout was enormous, standing room only as residents lined up to share their stories of Patricia's bullying. Shutters too beige, grass too tall, mailboxes too shiny. She had terrorized everyone in one way or another. The vote was unanimous. Patricia was removed as HOA president, effective immediately. She stormed out, knocking over a chair and muttering bitter threats of appeal. Months rolled by in blissful peace. Patricia kept to herself, though I occasionally noticed her curtains twitch whenever I was outside. Then, one evening while walking my dog, I spotted something that made me stop cold. In her backyard was a freshly dug pit, the size and shape unmistakably that of a pool. Stacked beside it were boxes stamped Premium Pool Kit Deluxe Edition. A delivery receipt flapped in the breeze, caught on the fence. The irony was almost too much to process. The very woman who sued me for a non-existent pool was building one of her own, without HOA approval. I snapped a photo and sent it to David, with a single question: should we report this? His reply came quickly. The new HOA board already knew. Patricia had failed to file the required permits or submit architectural plans. Now, she was facing the exact fines and disciplinary measures she had once unleashed on everyone else. At the board hearing, Patricia tried every excuse imaginable. The pool was medicinal. The rules didn't apply to her as a former president. Everyone was conspiring against her, but the board wasn't swayed. They fined her $20,000 and ordered her to halt construction immediately. Patricia refused. That refusal triggered the county. She was slapped with criminal charges for violating building codes. Her final day in court was quick and decisive. The same judge from my case presided, and he remembered her well. With no patience left, he found her guilty on multiple counts. The sentence: 200 hours of community service and $30,000 in fines. As the gavel cracked, Patricia's iron facade finally broke. She wept openly, realizing her reign of petty tyranny was over. So if you've ever crossed paths with a power-hungry HOA, or just enjoy watching justice catch up to bullies, this story should feel especially sweet. And if you want more real-life tales where the tables turn, don't forget to subscribe. Trust me, there are plenty more like this.